Hello, my name is Caramel, and I'm a camel, and I have a story to tell you about a really long journey to bring some rather strange gifts for a baby. It all started when my humans noticed a new star appear in the sky. My humans, some of them call them magi, some call them kings, and some call them wise men. I call them many things when I have to carry them hundreds of miles. Anyway, they spend their time studying the stars, and when they saw this new one appear, I have never seen them so excited. "A king!" said one. "A new king has been born. We must go and see him." "A very special king," said another. "We should take gifts." "I know just the thing," said the other. "Let's go. I wonder how far away it will be." Personally, I wish they had thought about that a little bit more, about how far before we set off. Following a star doesn't give you an estimated time of arrival, and you can't even guess how far the star, because it just keeps moving, leading us on 1 mile after another. We left our home in the east and just kept going, following that star. Eventually, they knew we must be close. "I wonder where the baby is," asked one. "Well, if he's a king, then why don't we try that palace?" said the second. "Yup, sounds like a plan," said the third. So off we went to the palace of King Herod. Now, I'd heard about this king, and the stories weren't great. But he welcomed them when he heard that they had gifts. Now, he didn't seem too happy, though, when the gifts weren't for him. Even less at the news that a new king had been born. He sent his advisers to see where they could find him. Then he sent us to some small town. Apparently, some prophets once said that a baby would be born in a town called Bethlehem. So maybe that was where we should start looking. "Be sure to let me know when you find him, so that I can visit him too," said King Herod. And off we went again, not looking for a palace this time, but a king born in a little town. How would we find him? Well, that star, the one that we'd been following, it suddenly seemed to stop and light up this whole place. Inside there was a pile of hay. Food at last, I thought. Only there was a little human right in the middle of it. Then they began to open their gifts. I think the woman was almost as surprised at them as I was to find a human in my food. But she smiled and thanked them for each one. "I bring gold," said the first, "for this child will be a great king." "I bring frankincense, for this child will be worshipped," said another. "I bring myrrh." Now, myrrh is an ointment that you put on dead bodies, so it's not really your usual gift for a baby. I wanted to say a cuddly camel would have been better, but he gave the myrrh to the young mother, and she just looked at it as though she understood why. And so that was it, really. We had travelled so far following this star. We met a king who didn't seem too happy, and a family with a baby laying in the hay. My humans were overjoyed. We set off home, this time by a different road. And all the way back they spoke of what they had seen. We were strangers from a foreign land, but this child was well worth our journey. He was worth our gifts. He was worth, well, he was worth everything.
So the wise men travelled from a distant land. They remind us that the birth of Jesus is for everyone, and not just for a chosen few, but for all people, rich or poor, near or far. They saw a sign of the star, a sign that was there for all to see, and so many would not have recognised its significance or seen anything more than any other star. But for those who look and took the time to see, they found the precious gift of Christ the King. A star bright and shining in the heavens, giving light to the whole world. We sing about a star of wonder, a star with royal beauty bright. This star was the sign that the wise men chose to follow, following across distant lands. How long did it take? Well, our nativity scenes and Christmas cards often show the wise men in that stable, along with the shepherds and everybody else. But the story that we find in Matthew's Gospel, a story about visiting King Herod, means that it was much more likely that they visited some time later. And so in church we remember this event in a time of what we call the Epiphany at the beginning of January. They chose to take a journey which would take them far, but they knew that it would be worth it. Now that word epiphany, we think of it as a word that means something is realised, something new is discovered. And so that's exactly what it was for the wise men. They found a baby and his family, but they discovered that he was much more than just a baby. And their gifts revealed something of who this baby was and who he would become. Gold for a king, frankincense, a perfume used in worship, a sign that this child was holy and would be worshipped. And then myrrh. No wonder Caramel thought that this was a strange gift to bring for a baby, for it is an ointment used in preparation for burial. But this gift was a sign of what was still to come for Jesus, a sign that Jesus would give his life on the cross for all humankind, to break the sting of death, to restore our relationship with God, and to bring about that perfect plan for the renewing of all creation. They gave their gifts, and they received joy in their hearts. Returning home, they were changed by all that they had seen. So as we come to our activity time, a time to dig deeper, I wonder what more you might be able to discover about these wise men or magi or kings. Who were they? Where did they come from? How far was it that they travelled? I wonder if you can think about what their names might have been. We don't really know exactly what their names were, but there are some thoughts out there of the three of them, of their names. How many were there? We know that there were 3 gifts, but we don't know if there were only 3 wise men. And then I wonder what their gifts were like. I wonder if you can find out what those ointments and fragrances might have smelt like. If you can find a candle maybe of frankincense and myrrh and have a smell of them and see what you think. One is sweet and the other is bitter. Have a think about those smells of those gifts. And then when you come to the create and play time, why not have a go at making a camel or a star, or even our wise men. You might want to act out the story, so you might want to get dressed up and travel on your camels and riding across the deserts, and then bring in your gifts of gold, frankincense and myrrh. And then you might want to think about those gifts. And think about what gift you might have brought for Jesus. Think about who Jesus grew up to be. Think about what gift you might choose to symbolise some of those things, those aspects of Jesus' life that would come. So there's lots of creating and playing that you can do for this week. And if you haven't already made any wise men or kings for your nativity scene, then again, this would be a good time to make them for that nativity scene, even though they come a little bit later. And then in our prayer time, well, today I really want to encourage you to think in your prayers, because the wise men saw a star and they chose to follow it. They chose to go and see for themselves. They took a long journey. They took that journey. They decided to make that journey. And they brought their gifts. And as they gave their gifts, they received joy and wonder in their own hearts. So as you pray together today, I wonder if you might consider how you respond to the gift of Jesus. We've celebrated at Christmas his birth, we've given and we've received gifts. But I wonder how the gift of Jesus has changed you. And so I invite you to spend this prayer time thinking and praying together, asking God to make himself known to you. And pray that as you receive him, that you may also be filled with that same joy and wonder that the wise men were filled with when they received Jesus into their hearts. So I hope you've enjoyed today's story from Caramel and enjoyed thinking a little bit more about these wise men at this time of Epiphany, revelation, learning, discovering something new. I hope that today you can discover something new about your relationship with Jesus and how he changes everything when you receive him into your hearts. So goodbye for now, and I'll see you next week when we're going to be thinking about another king, but not one of these, the king that we heard about in our story. So I'll see you next week. Bye for now.